Okay. Actually, we'll have to sit on the same chair.
Hi everybody, thank you for having us. First I wanted to thank Crystal and Jade and Kathy for sharing their story. Very, very powerful stuff. We're gonna start our talk the same way. We're gonna dive into our stories on who we are and how we came to be sitting on the stage. And then we'll dive into a little bit more about what Menz League is. So I'll start off. My name is Derek Hill. I was born in Ottawa, Ontario. I moved to Calgary in 1997 after my parents divorced, and my mom and sister and I moved to Calgary. I went to high school, university, and I took sciences. I became a geologist in university, and after I graduated, spent 2 years in the field working on the rigs, and then 9 years in corporate downtown Calgary working at Husky Energy. I've had a pretty interesting 20s. Like the decade of my 20s is one where, as I understand, everybody has their challenges and their ups and downs through their lives. But my 20s is really where I kind of learned the most and experienced the most of my life so far, and that includes a marriage and a divorce for myself, as well as a couple of life-threatening injuries where I was not quite sure I was going to make it out the other side. So lots of learning, and those learnings have brought me here today and created Menz League in a way. So we'll dive into that a little bit later on. I'm also a dog dad, and yeah, now I work at Menz League, and we're gonna explain that all to you guys, what the details are of that shortly.
Thanks.
And now to you, sir.
Awesome. Whenever I get on stage, I always wonder if my hand is shaking as much as I think it is. So if it is, you guys just can say something. Calm me down.
You're good.
Awesome. Yeah, guys, my name is Fabian Warner. A brief history about me: born and raised Calgary, athlete my whole life until probably my late 20s. Played basketball in college, played basketball my whole life, played football. Struggled with anxiety kind of as I exited the athletic side of my life. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a dog, I'm an adopted dog dad, same as Derek. And then I'll kind of jump into kind of where this Menz League thing came from. So for me, it kind of started in 2017. It was the first initial thing that happened. For my day job, I work in oil and gas. I do Indigenous engagement, kind of a big mediator. I was meeting with a vendor. We got to talking about life outside of work. He had mentioned that he goes to these retreats. And he said that he'd gone to this all-male retreat, and there was no phones, no talking, and it was 3 days out in the hills somewhere. And he said at the end of the retreat, men were breaking down and crying. And we kind of just got onto the concept of how men don't really share what's on their minds. They're really taught from a young age, don't cry. Don't be soft, don't share your feelings, don't share your emotions. It's kind of how you're taught in sports. So him and I started talking about, maybe one day we'll put together some sort of a retreat for men to start helping that dialogue, come to the forefront a little bit. Then we fast forward to 2019, nothing really happened, life goes on, we kind of forgot about it. And 2019 was an interesting year. It's a year I'll never forget. Who here has ever lost somebody? If you have, please raise your hand. I can't actually see your hands because the lights are so bright, but I know you're all doing it with me. I can feel it, because everyone's lost someone, guys. For me, I lost 3 close guys to me, kind of like every 3 months, one of them died. The first gentleman was a huge presence in the community, of the church community. He had 4 young boys. He was 37 years old. He had cancer, prostate cancer, and nobody knew he had it. He hadn't shared it with any of the guys. No guys knew until he was already dead. And I tell that part of the story not to bring the concept of cancer up. It was seeing the men in his life react to not being told. It was seeing the 40-year-old, his brothers, his best friends, break down and cry, because not only were they mad at themselves because they couldn't help, they were mad at him for not sharing it. And you go to his funeral, packed house, to hear the impacts he was doing. And I'm a big thinker, so I'm at this funeral and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, man, like, he would always reach out to me because he moved away to the States, but he'd always reach out once in a while to talk about the Lakers, talk about basketball. And, you know, I always appreciated those times, but I don't feel like I had regrets. You know, I never reached out enough to him. You know, I wasn't around the kids enough. I wasn't doing this. And in classic fashion, and I'll say men's fashion because that's what we do, is, you know, I thought it was fine. Logic, dealt with it, had a cry, moving on. You know, and then 3 months later, one of my best friends from high school and one of Derek's friends as well passed away. Now, this guy, again, massive influence in the community. He was huge in the hip hop and R&B scene. He helped bring a million different concerts to Calgary. He opened a bunch of nightclubs. He was a promoter of all the nightlife stuff. Didn't do any drugs, didn't drink in high school, not a drop. And when we left high school, we all started kind of partying, and then we started kind of dipping down and calming down. He started kind of getting more into the party scene. And he had a bad batch of drugs that was laced with fentanyl and gone. And again, to go to the funeral, see the impact, remember the things that I didn't get to say to him before he was gone, I'm back into that same spot I was in the first person passing away. Now, as this is happening, I am going through divorce myself, similar to Derek. And none of us walk down the aisle with our hands up and say, we're getting divorced in a year and a half, guys. That's what we want to do. So here I am, I'm now going through the divorce again. It's an amicable split. We're not angry, no one cheated on the other person. It just, there's a lot of complications in it, and it unfortunately didn't work. While I'm moving out of my house for the divorce, I get the phone call, my dad and I are holding my bed. My uncle dies. Failed liver, heart attack. So again, back again at another funeral. Again, massive impact. He had models named after him at the university. You see the impact. And the thing that stuck with me with my uncle was how he raised his two sons. They're similar to my age, but two of the most polite young gentlemen you would meet. And I just always appreciated how he raised them and how he valued family time. He was a guy who had a lot of money, made a lot of money in oil and gas, but the way he enjoyed putting on family events was next to none. So again, to see his funeral, see professors talking about him, see the impacts he's leaving on the world, I started really questioning, you know, Fabian, what's your skill set? I love people. I love their stories. I love their why. I love their how. I love talking. I've been lucky enough and blessed enough to be on the sports teams, to go to all the parties. What am I doing with my skill set? Started to really go through my mind. And I guess like the final piece for it before the idea really came to be was, I mentioned I was an athlete. After you identify as an athlete your whole life and you exit into the sitting in a chair and a desk world, your body tends to start to break down. It's not used to those sedimentary positions. So my back, I had a completely destroyed back. And I started thinking, you know, I have nieces, nephews that I love dearly. I'm not gonna be able to throw these kids up if I don't do something about how I'm living my life. I haven't had my own kids yet, and I might not be able to pick them up. And I started thinking, this is not how life is gonna go from here. And that's when New Year's happened. So 2019, about to be 2020. Derek had myself and two other gentlemen over at the house. We're having some cocktails, some nice food. And yeah, I just brought up the concept and not really thinking much of it. All four of them in unison latched onto the idea and said, you know what, like men need this. We're all sitting on these stories we don't talk about. Derek shared one with me that day. It was very powerful. He had gone golfing with another one of our friends. They had a great time, 18 holes. They get to the end of the round, they say, man, that was awesome, let's do it again next week. And he said, you know, I can't do it next week. My brother's dying next week because of cancer. So they just golfed 18 holes and never spoke about it once. And the only reason it came up is because they were talking about golfing the next weekend. And we started to realize that there's a big impact on it. And, you know, that's when Derek and I stayed up till 5 in the morning, New Year's Eve. We're starting a company, rah. Didn't really think we were actually 100% going to do it, I'll be fully honest with you. I was passionate about it, but I'd come up with business ideas before on New Year's and they never got off the ground. Still holding out for some of those later. And then the final piece, guys, honestly, the first gentleman that passed away, his wife, the mother of the kids, the 4 kids that he left behind, threw a birthday party for him. she had all the guys, there's about 16, 20 of his good friends there. And she stood on a chair and she gave a speech and she just said, you know, the last thing that he said to me before he died, he said, I'm going to make this my best comeback ever. And she looked at us and she said, I'm going to challenge all of you guys in this room to make 2020 your best comeback ever. If you are sitting on words to say to someone because you love them or whatever it is, say them. If you're sitting on an idea and you want to do something, you're passionate about it, do it. And I'm sitting there like, is she talking to me? And I'm starting to like, man, cry a little bit. And I'm like, so I go tell her the idea. I went and told her the idea that night. And at the time, and Derek will get more into what Men's League actually is, but at the time, it was just going to be an event. You know, let's get men in a room, let's get someone on stage to talk that can really touch them for a second, have them really think and leave and go back to the networks of guys and start talking. And yeah, I can report, and Jade, if you guys have talked to Jade, he managed to come to our first event. It just happened November 4th. It was an emotional day. I actually forgot a part of the story. Do you mind if I go back just a little bit? I was suffering with panic attacks. Forgot to mention that at the end of that year. So for those of you who've never had a panic attack, it feels like a heart attack. I was dropping to the ground on repeat. I'd be out at a restaurant on the ground, in a trailer in Fort St. John working my day job on the ground. And it happened about 8 times before I was like, okay, now maybe something's going on here. So yeah, it's just one of those things. I didn't have another panic attack after talking about it until the event. Literally 2 minutes before I was supposed to go on stage and open the event, panic attack in the bathroom. But I will say this time after talking to other people who've gone through it, having gone through it before and understanding it, I was able to like digest it, do it, and I thought the event went really well. So thanks for listening to my why, and I will pass it back to Derek. Actually, I do have one more thing, sorry. You like this one?
How many one more things?
I promise. We have a special lady sitting up in the audience. She's been an integral part of what we're building, resident psychologist here in Calgary, Katrina Shaw. So I just really wanted to highlight that a lot of the stuff we're doing, Derek's about to talk about, we wouldn't be able to execute without her professional opinion and her buy-in. So with that, it's up to you.
No more one more things. Okay. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you, Derek. Yeah. I think the message here for us is that we were coming across situations where men were not sharing their story and having real talk. And whether it was in change rooms or, you know, gatherings around to watch sports or whatever the situation was, men were not sharing these real battles that they were going through. And for whatever reason, whether it's ego or intimidation or fear of judgment, and so to the point, obviously, where these men were struggling enough that, you know, extreme circumstances were happening. And when Fabian and I sat down and talked about what we wanted to do, it was around that. It was around creating space for men to just talk, just have somebody that they can look at and realize are going through something similar, or know somebody that's gone through something similar. And that's why Men's League and mental health and community is very important to me, because throughout my journey in my 20s that I kind of referenced to earlier, I was going through it alone for the most part. I was the first to get married out of our group of friends, and first to get divorced by a long shot, with a quick turnaround like that. So going through that was a very difficult time, and I did it alone, and battling through those life-threatening injuries that I suffered through sports, having conversations with my parents about, you know, literally laying on your deathbed and having a conversation with your mother. They changed perspective for me, and that's why when Fabian came to me with this idea, it resonated right to my bones. So yeah, I guess we'll go to that New Year's Eve night, and we started with the idea of having an event, and so we get together, and this is just going to be the story, kind of what Men's League is and the journey where we are now. But we wake up January 1st, and we're going to do this for real this time, and we start planning an event. This is early 2020. And March 17th, 18th, COVID hits, of course, and everything kind of comes to a halt. So we kind of sit on the idea for a bit, kind of waiting out, okay, what's going to happen? Is COVID real? Is it not? Is this a pandemic? Is it not? Regardless, it is, as we all know, and still continues to be, but we decided to move our platform online. And again, with the goal of just creating space for men to be able to open up and share what they're going through, just to avoid the worst. And so we spent the last 6 or 8 months building well, a little longer than that now, 10 to 12 months, building an online platform where men can log on and gain resources. They gain community, so we have chat forums, we have Zoom calls, we have coaching calls for men. We've got tons of resources for your mental health. We have a mental health resource library. We've got self-guided courses that men can take at their own pace. And we also have an option for virtual mental health check-ins with mental health advocates. So unlimited 45-minute calls for men. Anytime they want, they book online and they get access to support that way. So that's been the undertaking recently, is building out that online platform and making sure that men are able to find the resources that they need, and the response has been fantastic. The more and more we talk about it, the more and more men come up and step up and feel safe to have those conversations. Moving forward, we're looking at, we've built out some corporate packages, so we've been gaining interest from different organizations across the city that are interested in the platform, and just, again, that space for men to become vulnerable and share their stories of what they're going through and kind of connect through community. And the last goal for 2022 is that we're going to open up a clinic, standard therapy clinic, with some unorthodox ways that we can provide services. Again, the overarching message here is that we're just creating space for men to take that first step, and it's super important for us. And whether it is through an event, or through an online course, or coming to a therapist, or through work and connecting through people through work and in the corporate space. Our goal is really just to create those spaces for men to feel comfortable and to have a conversation with each other. Because 99% of the time, as soon as they have that conversation, it's a weight off their chest. They start to feel better about themselves. They realize that there's a community of people out there that are going through the same things, and there's lessons that can be learned from each other. So to wrap kind of things up on what Menz League is we always like to leave things with a challenge, and that would be just a challenge to everybody here. If you know a man that is silent, or you know a man that you feel like could use a conversation, don't be shy. Take that first step and just let him know that there's space for him to reciprocate and to share a story. And I think we've seen throughout our couple of years in business together that once that man is given that space, he will take it, and it will make a massive, massive difference in his mental health, really, and the way he carries himself day to day. So that is a challenge for you, Fabian. I'll let you wrap things up.
Are you sure?
Well, no more one.
Yeah, okay, I'll wrap it up, guys. And before I do, I just want to say, because you did bring up the name, and we did. I sat down with my 12 best friends when we were naming the company, because I was like, it's Menz League. It kind of So the name is a little bit, we struggled with it, and the reason we stuck with Menz League is we wanted it really to resonate with a safe place for men first. But I did want to note that Menz League is not just for men. It really is about men becoming better, and that's better fathers, better husbands to their wives, better boyfriends to their girlfriends, better sons to their mothers. So it's about men becoming better for ourselves, but also for women as well. So last thing I'll leave you guys with, we like to call what we're doing the two-clap movement. As I mentioned, I came from a sports background. We used to do it as a team, and then I went on to coach children. I used to do it with our organization there. So I'm hoping you guys can help me out with that. You guys are a very interactive crowd. I can feel it, even though I'm blind. All you have to do is clap your hands 2 times when I say 2 claps. So if I go 2 claps, we're gonna try it again. 2 claps, 2 claps. All right, so first group I'd like to thank is the community now. This is what it's about, guys. The first step, putting it in front of people, having conferences, athletes talking about it, that's what it's about. So can we get 2 claps? I would like to thank all of the people that work at Menz League, all of the advocates, all of the guidance. There's some guys here that are helping us along the way in the business side of things as mentors. I'd like to thank my business partner Derek, and as I mentioned, Katrina Shaw. Can I get 2 claps? You can never do stuff alone. This idea would not exist if it wasn't for all these people, so I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart, I really do. And then lastly, for everyone that's here, again, taking this step, coming out here, the speakers, like that first speech, and then to hear Jade's story, like, you guys are, that's gonna stick with me for probably the rest of my life. Like, I didn't even know that was like, you opened up doors that I didn't even know were possible when you told that story. So, thank you guys so much. Can we get 2 claps? Thank you guys so much, we appreciate you.